Welcome to the Wish I'd Known Then podcast, where we focus on how authors found success, looking at strategies that have taken them to the top of the bestseller charts, as well as what they've learned from their mistakes. Because being an indie author is more than knowing the latest marketing trend. It's about being innovative and creative and learning from your mistakes. Your co-hosts, Jami and Sara Rosette, couldn't be more different. In fact, they're a study in contrasts. However, despite all of their differences, they agree that sharing what they wish they'd known, both the good and the bad, is the key to moving forward. Let's get to the show.
Welcome to the Wish I'd Known Then podcast. I'm Sara Rosette.
And I'm Jami Albright. And today we have an interview with Martha Carr.
Yes, so it was really good interview. We talked about a lot of different things. She's run some literary universes, so we get into that. And then we also talked about defining success and contentment and lots of really good stuff.
Yeah, all stuff I love. And I love Martha. She's fun and always fun to talk to her. So What's been going on with you this week, Sara?
Well, let's see. I finished a draft of one of my books. So I was really happy, even though all this craziness is going on in the world. I work best from home. So since I'm home all the time, it's actually been good for me. And I'm glad I'm near the end because that helps me get, it's easier at the end for me than the beginning. So I had that going on. And then I also found out today that some sessions I put together for SPF, they have the Self-Publishing 101 course. There's a little section in there now that I recorded for them on Ingram Spark. So
yay, that's so fun.
Yeah, so we'll put a link to that in the show notes if anyone wants to go check that out. But if you already have SPF 101, it's in the Tech Vault. You can just go in there and find it. And it's all about how to do print books and how to get your books in libraries, and it kind of walks you through everything. So
it's so good because Ingram Spark, while wonderful, can be a little tricky sometimes. So.
Yes, there's a lot of variables there, and there's a lot of decisions you have to make about how you want to approach it. So we talk through all that. So hopefully that'll be really helpful.
And just to kind of add another endorsement to 101, the Self-Publishing Formula 101, that's a great course. I did that course before I published. There were some modules that really, really, really changed things for me and helped me. I would say specifically the module on autoresponders. I completely and 100% credit that for the fact that I have now almost a 200-person ARC team. And it's because of the autoresponders and the things that I learned in there from Mark.
Yeah, it's just really good basic information to help you get started. So
it is.
Good stuff there.
There'll be a link in the show notes if anybody's interested.
Yeah. So what about you? You've had a big week.
I've had a big week. Last Sunday, the 22nd, our daughter, who is pregnant, got very, very sick, and they had to deliver the baby. And so he came a month early, but he's fine. Mom's fine. And we were in the hospital from Sunday to Thursday. So no writing got done, but, it was really a fun, exciting time, and he's precious, and, we're all in love, and she's doing really well. So that was, it's been a big week, but it was, with everything else going on, it was stressful,
Yeah, I imagine.
If you can help it, don't have a baby.
Yeah, it's not on everyone's list of things that they want to do. So, but I'm glad everything worked out okay.
Yeah, we are too. And, we're fortunate he was fine. But, we would rather him not have come a month early. But then with everything going on, it really turned out well, because I'm afraid that pretty soon hospitals in Houston are going to say that moms can't have anybody in the room.
Anybody,
like no visitors. And so she would have been having this baby by herself, and I would have just really hated it.
So
but it all worked out.
and everybody's home now and all good,
Mm-hmm.
right? So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so now you can just self-isolate at home and not go to the hospital.
Nope, and love on that baby, and it'll just be fun. But and then speaking of self-isolating and all this craziness, we should mention that we recorded this interview with Martha probably 6 weeks ago or so.
Yeah, it's been a while.
This craziness starts, and she talks about traveling and plans to travel
Mm-hmm.
in the interview. So she's not being irresponsible.
That's right.
And so this was happening.
Yeah. So hopefully things will get back to normal, and she will be able to do her trip, and hopefully we'll all get back to the way it was, or some semblance of that. So, but anyway, so I guess we should start the interview with Martha.
Yeah, let's get on with it. So today we have with us Martha Carr, and we're just so glad to have you here, Martha.
Thank you. I am very glad to be here.
Well, tell us about what you write, the genres. I was going to say that when I was introducing you, but there's so many, it's very diverse. So I wanted you to do it. I didn't want to mess up.
Sure. So I actually only write in urban fantasy. I used to write thrillers, but the world did not agree with me. Mm-hmm. And so I switched to urban fantasy, and things took off. And I do have coming out my first epic fantasy, War Mage. But for the most part, I just love urban fantasy. I like the idea that magic could be real all around this, and at any moment you'll discover it.
That's great. Yeah. And then tell us a little bit about your background, how you got into writing and stuff.
So when I was 30, I was going through a divorce, and I had an infant, and I had this thought that I tried things everyone else's way. I'm now going to try it my way. Mm-hmm. And I stopped being a stockbroker, which I was actually successful at, but I hated every day of it. Mm-hmm. And because I was a stockbroker, I had this insane thought that the local newspaper business section would love to have me as a writer, even though I'd never written anything. And I called up, I don't know how I talked my way into the newsroom too. That's pretty amazing that I even got them to talk to me. And because I was a single mother suddenly with this infant, I was pushing Louis in his little stroller. So I'm sure that looked super professional too. Mm-hmm. And the guy gave me this long list of books to read, which I now know he thought I'd go away and never come back. Mm-hmm. But I went and got all the books, read them all, took notes. And when I came back carrying them, I can still remember the shocked look on his face. Mm-hmm. But because I had done all that work, the entire little business department adopted me and taught me how to write an article. My first article was How to Get the Job You've Always Wanted. And it was actually not well written, probably. It really wasn't. Yeah. And I knew where it was supposed to show up and on what day, and I didn't see it, so I thought, well, they didn't run it. And I kept turning. They did a full color spread in the because they were trying to encourage me. Yes. And I remember thinking, I wonder who's getting fired over this. So that was how I started. Then I grew up in the DC area and thought of the Washington Post as a local paper and didn't realize I should be intimidated by them. Mm-hmm. And they took my first pieces, and I ended up writing for them as a stringer and worked my way up to having a national column on politics and started writing. And I was published as a traditional author first. Mm-hmm. The one time everyone really did want a thriller from me. And eventually woke up to being an indie, which is just fantastic. It's like a dream job.
Yeah, it is. It
really is. Well, so it sounds like you have, sounds like you're very persistent and very determined, right?
Yes.
So, so what would you say was your first big success?
Well, my first big success was probably writing for the Washington Post, just because you go through 3 editors there, not just one. Mm-hmm. And they ask really, really good questions. And so I learned humility because I often had to say, I'll get back to you on that. And I learned how to pare down what I was saying and use 1 adjective instead of 4. Mm-hmm. Although when I came to writing books, it took a while before I quit putting in fun facts. That was my one. Yes. That did not help the plot, but I found utterly fascinating. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and then I had a thriller, Wired, that came out in 1993, before cell phones. And it was a bestseller in the old land, and all the libraries picked it up. So that was my first success back in the day.
Wow, that's great. So did you get an advance for that, or?
I did. And much like Mark Dawson was saying in 20 books, monetarily, it didn't add up to oh, my life has changed. I mean, it was a nice year, sort of, but, and then also it didn't necessarily add up to, if you have a really nice big success in indie land, chances are a certain percentage of those people are going to try your next book.
Right.
And that has not necessarily been the case in traditional land at all. And I had a lot of friends in traditional land, some of whom are now indies with me. And that was pretty consistent across the board. One hit did not necessarily mean much of anything.
Wow. That's crazy.
Don't you think part of that is because of the timing, that it takes so long for the books to come out in the traditional world?
That, and I didn't have control over marketing and access as much.
Yeah. That's true.
Yeah.
And also we worked independently of each other. So there wasn't the hive mind and the helping each other. If you didn't come from traditional land, I don't know that indies realize what an asset it is that we help each other, or that these podcasts exist. And so getting people to remember you even existed was tough.
Yeah. I came out of that too. I was traditionally published first, and everybody used to talk about you. Everyone was so excited about how cooperative indies are and how willing they are to share. And I thought, well, as a traditional author, we probably would have done that more, but we just didn't know anything. We didn't know our sales figures, and we didn't know what was working. So,
and also how much input did you have? Even if you had said how much you could have paid for it yourself. And I spent far more money than I like to think about on marketing.
Yeah.
But it just isn't the same. And indie land is where to go. I know a lot of traditionals say, but it's either I'm going to try and get the approval of a small group of important so-called people who I'm sure are lovely, or I'm going to try and sell a lot of books. And that's why I'm here.
Right.
It's the
get
readers.
People, exactly. To get people to read your book.
Read it. Yeah.
Well, then what would you say, what do you wish you'd known about writing and craft?
Well, besides don't put in fun facts.
Fun facts. I was going to say, yes. We've learned that.
So if I can turn the page, like a couple pages, and you lost nothing from the plot, then it needs to go. Maybe there's one or two sentences I should save from it, but the rest has to go. But the other thing that I've really learned is character development is key. That people go from book to book more for wanting to find out what their friends are doing in the book than plot. Plot matters. It's not like you can discard anything, but maybe you found this in romance too. But if they really, really like the characters, then they talk about them like they're real. And I think I accidentally did that in Wired, that first thriller that sold so well. And I just didn't realize that's what I did right. And that's Lois Lane, the deaf dog, wandering off to bark at nothing.
Well, you probably hear Tug, the annoying dog, soon, because he usually makes an appearance.
Yeah, we like dogs on this podcast. That's totally cool.
Well, that's true in romance too. I think that people, I think that some writers don't give that enough weight. The making the characters likable, lovable.
And also having a conversation. The characters need to have conversations with each other that aren't shoot that guy, and that give a little more description about what they're like, and have them do things that takes a break from the pace. And the Lyric Chronicles came out in 2017, and they just hit bestseller again as a box set and they're holding at a very nice place 2 years later. It's the characters.
I agree. And then in mine, it's also the town, like the little town that I've set it in. So if you do small town stuff, or even if you do big city stuff, if it's a corporation or a winery or wherever you set it, your setting can become a character as much as your
totally agree. And it should.
Yeah, I agree.
I want to live there. I want to know these people. I care about how they're doing. I like this place where they are. Yeah, it all adds up to where's the next book?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, that's true. I write cozies and traditional mysteries, and that's what people want to go back to visit. It's like they're going to visit a little town that they miss the people in.
Yes.
So, yeah.
They're where they would live if they only had the chance.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's probably
fulfillment.
Yeah, and it's also probably why it's possible to sell a book a year and do extremely well. It's because the friends came for a visit.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's what I would do differently is I would actually know characters matter most.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Well,
agree.
switching up a little bit, what do you wish you had known about marketing?
Not to spend so much on it. Or not to hand it to others to do for me and spend so much on it.
Yeah.
And to play to my strengths. I have a learning disability. It's called dyscalculus. I can't see numbers. And that's not going to change. And rather than lament it, I collaborate with LMBPN, and it's the best of both worlds for me because it just gives me anxiety to be told all the numbers too, because, the cost per click and all of that. Great. What does that mean? Is that good? And instead I can focus on my strengths. And so my ability to engage on social media is really good. So I'll concentrate there. I can write a good blurb. That's excellent. I know how to form a good cover. So with marketing, play to your strengths. You don't have to actually be everything if that's not going to happen.
Right.
And you'll have a much better time. You should be having a good time at this.
Yeah.
If you're really unhappy, then let's look at that first. And you're laughing because we know people who are really unhappy.
Yes. Yeah.
And
we do.
They don't question that.
Yeah.
And I don't think you're unhappy. I mean, having been a poor writer for a lot of years, I know that I was still happy. So it is possible, although, you need to go pay the bills, it's still possible, though, to feel good about what you're doing as a writer.
Yes, I agree. And when you say LMBPN, will you tell listeners what that is? Yeah.
So Michael Anderle and I hooked up when he was just starting, and he formed a company called LMBPN, and it's a hybrid kind of Indian traditional in some ways. And writers collaborate with him, and we share profits. And he has a really extensive back office that does a lot of things that I don't have to do because they're doing it.
Right.
And one of the things is marketing. And I mean, I support it. I'll tell you, I know from watching a lot that writers who do not participate in their own social media with posting do not sell as well, or they don't get as much reader participation as those who do.
Right. Yeah.
I agree. I think that, characters and then your readers, they've got to be right there.
Which is one and the same.
Yeah,
exactly. If you think about it, it's one and the same. You're creating a world that they love, and they see you as an extension of it, and they want to participate with you. And you do that, Jami, so well. Your comedy background helps. If you can do humor, I write humor well, and I guess I'm funny one-on-one because I make Michael laugh, but you do it on a group, it's amazing. And that sells better. That will attract readers more than anything if you can make them laugh.
Yeah. I think that's why my Facebook ads work, because,
well, I
usually use humor, or I use an excerpt from the book, which is usually humorous. And so I think that helps. It's harder for other authors that write different things, because sometimes
you can use humor in horror, you can use humor in sci-fi.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
It really doesn't matter. And post-apocalyptic, it can be funny. You just lost an arm. I mean, there's an ad running right now where the guy's ear drops off and he sighs and goes, "Alexa, turn up the volume." So
I love that.
Some of the stuff, if it's super serious, you need that humor to kind of to relieve the tension, to give you a break as a reader. You kind of need that. So,
absolutely. Otherwise, it's just too much.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Even that, remember the movie Misery, speaking of writing?
Yes.
And the humor in it that broke it up. Otherwise, it would have been too much for your heart rate to keep going.
Right. Yeah. Right. Well, and just full disclosure, my audiobooks are with LMBPN. So they're a publishing company of sorts. That's what they are.
No, they are now. Yeah.
Yeah, they are now. But it is a combination of indie and traditional.
Right.
So
it's like a new model.
It is a new model.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I love it.
Imagine being able to there are things about the traditional world I liked. It's not like it was all, wanted to discard it all, because there's a lot of small tasks that go along with putting out a book that eat up your time. And if to have people who are dedicated to that and do it well is awesome. And I don't have to even know about it. I just know it's done. And so then I can focus on writing.
Yeah. That's exactly right. That is exactly right. What assumptions did you make at the beginning of your writing career, and looking back, did they turn out to be right or wrong?
I started out when there was just traditional, and I assumed that I would have to wait for the right people to finally say, we approve of you. And, when Wired sold, first of all, Wired got turned down by everybody. And then this little small house took it, and then it took off. And I went to a publishing event, and all the publishers there said, why didn't you send it to us? And I had. And I smiled and said, I'll send you the next one.
Yeah.
And so I learned that they have short-term memory loss, and they really don't remember you or care. They just it's easier to turn it down than it is to say yes.
Yeah.
So I just had this assumption that it would always be in somebody else's hands, and I just had to keep pitching. And thank God I was, the world changed, and I was wrong.
Yeah. That's true.
Yeah. Well, so we wanted to talk to you about like a work-life balance, because that was something that you had mentioned.
Right.
So you've transitioned to writing full-time, and you said you're coming up on your 1-year anniversary.
March 1st.
Yeah. So how has that
exciting.
been, and what have you learned from that?
So I had a corporate job, and I was very fortunate because it was with people I like. So it wasn't like I was running, screaming from the building. And it was more like I had to peel my fingers off of it. But I wasn't going to be able to continue to do 2 full-time jobs forever. I mean, something had to give, and the writing's going super well, so it seems kind of stupid to give that up. And transitioning to where I make the schedule, and there should be some fun involved that's non-work related. If somebody, it was really difficult when someone says, do you want to go to this really fun thing, and it's in the afternoon of this work day? I mean, I've had to learn to say, I think you can do that, Martha. And the world will not stop, and this book will still get written. And so I've had more time giving myself a break. It's been the hard part than anything else. And also, I don't necessarily need to write faster than I was. So just because there may be more time doesn't mean it needs to be filled with staring at a computer and typing.
Right. Yeah. If you can get your work done in 2 or 3 hours, then you've gotten your work done. Yeah.
And also, I'm very fortunate to be working with Michael Anderle, because he has consistently, occasionally laughed and said, why are you doing that? Why don't you pay someone to do that? And so it's lucky to be with somebody whose attitude is, this is all supposed to also be fun. And so the past year, what I learned is there's a certain place where I'm not willing to work harder in order to make more.
Yeah.
I'm happy with what I am making. It's far more than I ever thought I'd ever be making. The house that no one can see, but it's lovely and has the same green color as Jamie's.
Yep.
I
was gonna bring up your house, because you bought your house with book money. Yeah,
that's right. This is the house the troll built.
And it is lovely. It's a beautiful house.
Thank you very much. And so that's what I learned is, at some point I quit paying attention to the posts that some writers do of, here's the massive amount of work I am doing, and I will be putting out all these books, and just thought, that's not really what I want. So I'm looking into renting a room in Tuscany for a couple weeks this summer, and going to go right there.
Oh my gosh, how wonderful.
That sounds like
wonderful.
a great idea.
Well, A.L. Knorr, who writes urban fantasy, she used to do that before she got married to a very handsome Turkish man. And I just thought, oh, she's so much smarter than I am because, she's sitting, she would send me pictures of the view from the room. And I just thought, she is smarter than I am.
Yeah.
And so
smart.
now I can, maybe I'll meet a nice,
you can do that
Turkish.
too.
Yeah.
Well, so some of what you said kind of brings me to my next question, which is, what do you wish you'd known about comparison before you started doing this? Or what have you learned about comparison?
Well, fortunately, success came to me at a later age. And I'd already learned a few things about comparison. So at least I didn't quite go on the full ride. And I was doing fairly well. So at least I could also say, I'm winning.
Yeah.
But at some point, why are you competing? And it can be harmful because instead of getting the rest I need, I'm sitting there typing because if I get one more book out and if I can get it in under 3 weeks, then maybe I can do this. And then also, so I was doing fairly well. And then because I do, unlike traditional, because I do have a clear view of how others are doing because they're posting it, suddenly I'm thinking I'm not doing as well because that guy over there just passed me.
Right.
Well, I was happy 5 minutes ago. And now I'm letting that steal my joy. And I can do things like contemplate a room in Tuscany for a couple of weeks. So what's the problem here? So
Yeah, I think we have to figure out what makes us happy and be able to filter out like those things, those posts that make us think, oh, I should do more. Because I came to the realization a couple of years ago that there will always be more. Like my to-do list is never going to be totally marked off. And some days I just have to say, okay, that's enough for today and stop. And
right. So I've worked on setting reasonable goals for the day. So I do feel like got that done. And mine is 3,000 words a day. It's something I can do without a lot of stress.
Right.
And but if there's a day where 2,000 came out and if that's all there was, then I walk away and I just have a much more of a feeling that things do tend to work themselves out. And I do still try to cheer on those who feel they need to build a bigger and better, go for it. And I just don't want to do that anymore. It was I tried publishing a few books on my own last year, and it was a lot of work and a lot of money and not as much fun.
Well, so talk to us about like collaboration and so you've basically you ran universes, right? For
I still
Michael?
do.
Yeah. So talk to us about that and like what you've learned about running a universe and literary world building, things like that. How's that gone?
If you have management skills, that will come in handy then. And there actually is a real art to management because you need to be able to communicate clearly without crushing somebody's feelings of that they can get this done. And you also have to be willing to occasionally say this isn't working out. And it helps if the person running the universe is a strong writer because you may need to jump in and fix the thing, and that's all there is to it.
Right.
And so time management also helps. Have to keep track of, are the covers done for each person when they're supposed to, and you have to set up infrastructure. It's a lot like having, a corporate job in the sense of running a universe. And then it helps if you can have a pretty good memory. We do have set up our own group of people who remember all the canon for Orsarin because by now it's very big.
It's huge, right?
It's huge. There's about 150 books, I think, or more at this point. And but at the same time, if you ask me a general question, I'll know the answer. And on Terra Novis, the new universe, if you ask me a question, for the most part, I'm going to know the answer. So you just have to have a certain personality that can be very clear with people. You can't say maybe, probably, should to an answer. That's not an answer. You just told them nothing. And have to have a good time management of saying to somebody, when do you feel you'll turn this in? And then understand human condition of packing a little time around it, etc. So, don't do it if you really aren't into all that management, don't venture into it because it's not going to go well.
Right. And you created, so with Michael, you created like a separate universe called Saran. And then you recruited, what was it, 5 authors to begin with?
Well, Michael and I did.
Michael, y'all recruited those authors, and they wrote in that world, in your world. Yeah.
And we made an error at first because we didn't know any better. So we created Earth and Saran, two worlds that come together at certain times. And everybody to a person except Michael and I started their story on Earth and then ran to Saran and never came back. And so it turned from urban fantasy to fantasy. And we learned that readers who like sci-fi tend to read urban fantasy. Readers who read urban fantasy don't tend to read fantasy. And so that was the first big lesson we learned, is that you have to get people to swear that they'll start on Earth, stay on Earth. And ask to see as they're going along to make sure nobody took a left turn in Albuquerque and suddenly they left Earth and aren't planning on going back.
Yeah.
Great stories, but not
they didn't fit. Yeah, not urban fantasy. Yeah, that's so. Those are really great lessons, and I think our listeners will get, if they're thinking of co-writing or something. There's got to be somebody that's running the ship. I mean,
right?
If you don't have that, you're going to get
chaos.
yourself in. It's
chaos.
Just a lot of chaos and trouble.
Right.
Yeah, so that's great. So what do you look back and think, that wasn't a good use of my time?
So I saw that question, and the thing that jumped out at me was the oodles of time I spent worrying about whether or not this would all work. I wish I had enjoyed the ride more, because it really was a great ride. I mean, I'm 60, so there's still some ride left, but there's a long ride behind me of 30 years of writing. And like, I wrote a book on U.S. orphanages and spent 2 years living on them. And it was amazing and life-changing for me. And I wish I had just enjoyed it more and said, things will work out the way they're supposed to. Even if I hadn't met Michael in the financial, I was still doing okay. I found a corporate job. It was okay. I just wish I had said, this is really great, and not said, well, I hope it gets to this level of success so I can do this.
Yeah. There's kind of a fine line between striving and being content. We kind of have to find our point where we're comfortable. So
I struggle with that a lot too. So Sarah knows that, but
I think
because you don't want it to steal your joy.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I let it steal my joy at times. I also, I think I couldn't claim the success I had because I often only defined it as financial. And so I didn't enjoy what was going on around me, because in my mind I was doing the math poorly, but I was doing it.
I'm right there with you on poor math. I'm not good at it either.
Yeah.
So have you ever made a mistake that turned out to be a good thing?
No, the only mistake that everybody else would say I made is that I never stopped writing. I mean, everyone in my family thought it was a bad idea, except I had this really wonderful cousin, a few times removed, who he had won a Pulitzer back in the 60s. And he was considered the family patriarch, and everybody was a little afraid of him. And he took one of his books and wrote in the front, "To a successful author," before I'd written a word.
Oh, wow.
And handed it to me, because he knew the rest of the family would see that and back the hell off. I even heard my father saying to his sister, "He wrote this in the front of the book. I don't know what this means." And it gave me like an inch of breathing room. And so I don't, I made, I'm sure I made a lot of mistakes along the way. Like, my fun facts filled up pages. And then the first covers for the thriller series I did, the name of the first book was The List, because in my head that sounded spooky. The List. And then later, after learning a bit more, I thought, the list of what? And the cover was this really artistic blue thing, so that wasn't going to help you either. And but that didn't help. that didn't lead anywhere except to Michael and all the jokes.
Yes.
So really, if you're if you have to write, if you just feel like I have a story to tell, I have to write. That was me. Then just keep writing. You are going to make mistakes. You will write some things that you think, oh, okay, well, tomorrow's another day. And it'll still get better.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you sort of answered that a little bit, but has there been something you thought, this is it? This is going to be the thing that makes it happen for me. And then it turns out to not be that thing.
Lots of times.
Yeah.
I mean, writing for the Washington Post, you would have thought that would have led to, fame and fortune. Then I learned out we're all just regular Joes. A national column on politics that 4 million people a month read. You would have thought that would have led, but it was in the middle of the Great Recession, so maybe that had something to do with it.
Yeah.
Having a bestseller right out of the gate, you would have thought. I mean, I thought, hey, this is
I'm set.
Yeah. What are you people complaining about? This is easy. So it depends on how you define success. I can still fall into the trap of, well, if it makes X, then it's successful. But the book on orphanages, for example, which by the way are all around us, and more kids go on to college from U.S. orphanages than from the general population.
Oh, that's amazing.
Wow.
Yeah. And so because of that book, it inspired different people to start their own places, because there's about 600,000 kids and growing who need a place. So that's successfgo. The places I stayed at had never had a journal. Most won't let journalists on it. It was a long process before they let me go there. And to a person, they said I got it right, which I was kind of afraid of. So that's successful. So, again, going back to that, I wish I could have defined success in a much broader sense.
Yeah. That's good to know. That's good. That's a good answer. And something I need to hear, because I tend to paint it one way.
Financial.
It
might help to write down a personal definition that you can keep where you can see it of, this is what success means to me.
Right. Yeah.
So on the days when you're thinking, I sold what? You can look back at it and say, okay, but there's this, and and you're Jami, you're already super successful.
Well, thank you. But it's that, there's always somebody doing better than you. There's always and so if you can't stop looking at them and enjoy what you have, you will be miserable in this business, because there's just always somebody doing better than you.
Well, also though, I've had the great fortune to know a lot of those people, and I know the amount of work they put into that success, and I'm not willing to
exactly.
And I also know, and that was very nice of Mark Dawson to share as well when he gave that speech. I know how much money they're spending every month to get to that level of success.
Right.
And so they, just because someone's making, say, $20,000 a month, they may not be taking home a lot of that. A lot of that may go right back out the door. Well, is that what you want? That's a lot of hard work. They're doing it for the long-term picture that they hopefully will get to X and it'll even out.
Yeah.
If that's what you want, great, but that's not what I want.
Yeah. And that's great that you know that. Yeah.
Well, I found it out over the last year. I tend to learn more from doing something I don't like.
Yeah.
And then crossing it off the list and saying, and that's I think a really healthy thing to be able to do, is to say, finding out what I didn't like is actually success.
Yes.
Because I can now, with a lot more ease of mind, go rent a room in Tuscany and type away.
And not worry about what you're missing out or not doing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just think if our listeners take nothing away from today, but that, that whole thing of defining your success and keep sticking with that. I mean, it's easy to get distracted and stuff, but keeping that as your home base. Well, I think that this podcast will be successful if just one person walks away with that, because it's so important.
Well, if you also can keep the definition, but when you run into things and realize, I don't like doing that at all, change your definition to fit that in and see that as successful. That, like I said, I learned far, far more from, I bought a bench once out on impulse when I was supposed to be buying a couch. It's a really nice leather seat. And for 2 weeks, I kept buying pillows, stuffing it on there, and I made everyone who walked into my apartment sit on it, including delivery people. And I would say, it's comfortable, right? And it took me 2 weeks before I realized I had bought a bench and not a couch.
Yeah.
And I had to go and buy a couch. And I learned, don't do that. And so, yeah, maybe it's humans or maybe it's me, but I learned last year, I don't like doing everything at all.
Yeah.
And I'd rather share the profits and not do everything and just go right. And I love it. I'm having a much better time.
That's great.
Yeah. See, I'm struggling with that right now because I've gone all in indie. And so I'm possibly thinking about doing translations, but I've had some inquiries from companies who are interested in the translation. So now I'm going, oh, do I do it myself? Do I give up a little of the money and let them do it? So it's
try it. You'll find out. I mean, try the way that's speaking to you the most.
Yeah.
Give it your all. Discover if you like it or not. Change course if you don't.
Yeah.
I changed course.
Yeah, that's the important thing, to be able to say, okay, I tried this and it didn't work and I didn't like it. And you can redefine what your success is.
That's right.
To you. Yeah.
Terra Novis is a new universe in LMBPN. That was the universe I created last year on my own. And in November said, oh no, this was not good. So now it's all been reintroduced under the LMBPN umbrella, and it's great.
Okay.
That's great.
Cool. Well, so what changes have you seen over the course of time in your genre that you've been writing in?
Well, I was very fortunate to start before the rest of the world discovered urban fantasy, and it was lovely. And by the rest of the world, I mean authors, not readers.
Yeah.
And it was lovely. I mean, you launched a book and, suddenly it's like listed at 150 in the Amazon store. Woohoo.
Yeah.
And it stuck there for a while. And mostly what's happened is other authors have discovered urban fantasy, and it's now a very crowded field, but it's still very doable. And you just have to be smarter. You can't expect that your cover can be so-so or your blurb. You just have to be more professional about it, and you'll be fine. And maybe watching the trends helps.
Yeah.
Is everybody doing a vampire book? Maybe time to not do a vampire book.
Yeah. Have a vampire sidekick, but not the vampire itself.
Well, you can make the other argument too that if you really want to do a vampire book, gather your friends and see if you can do marketing together so you can create the trend. So, don't necessarily, everything's got a solution. It's just, are you willing to go look for it? So even in that, we're doing a dragon giveaway, a bunch of us authors, because we all noticed we're doing dragon books suddenly. Like we all woke up one day and said a dragon would be great. And instead of like looking over our shoulder at each other, we're joining forces and we're going to be doing a nice big giveaway together, and we'll create the trend.
So where exactly do you find a dragon to give away?
Yeah, that was good. And also one little note, if you're doing a giveaway, and if you're in the US, you always have that thing where you can't do it for anything but the US. Look for an author who's in the UK. See if they'd be willing to help you out in terms of shipping. I mean,
that's really smart.
That is smart.
Think outside the box.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say. That's thinking outside the box, because all of us were also worried about what trend is hot right now. If you could create your own trend, then you'd be on the leading edge of that. And that'd be awesome.
That's right. Yeah. And then everybody will follow you, and you'll be back into vampires, and you'll have the place to yourself.
That's right.
You'll lead them away from the vampires, and you run back. Yeah.
That's right. And you'll have a vampire with a dragon for momentarily.
There you go.
Probably somebody's going to hear this and think that's a great idea.
That's right. I'm writing that tomorrow.
That's right.
So what would you say the one thing you've done, or the best thing you've done to set yourself up for success has been?
That is a simple question. So for some reason, I decided that the next time the door opened, I would just say yes. That my ideas in terms of financial had failed. Everything else, I'd actually been very successful. Won awards, compliments, readers. But in terms of financial, why would I keep trying it my way? I mean, the definition of insanity, try it your way over and over, expecting different results. So I get this email that this guy is talking in Austin, and he's only been writing fiction for, I think, 5 months, and he's already making $30,000 a month in fiction, which is supposed to be in those days completely impossible.
Right.
So I thought, well, I'm going to go to find out, one, if he's legit, and two, maybe I'll pick up a marketing idea or something. And there were 90 authors in the room. And halfway through, I realized he had spotted what was so obvious. He was writing to a specific group that he happened to also be one of, which is whale readers, people who like to read a book a day or more. And he's one of them. So he just kind of accidentally did what they want, the style of writing they like, the tropes they like. And so at the end, and that's Michael Anderle, and at the end, he said, I'll stay for as long as anyone has questions. And I thought, oh, well, I had this teenage writer with me, and I thought I'll never be able to stay. I turned around and looked, and there were two old guys, and that was it. And everybody streaming past me was saying, he's a liar. What a joke. Can't be true. And and these are all authors.
Yeah.
And every last one of them left. And so I went up there and I got his phone number. Back in those days, he would give it to you. And out of the three of us who asked him questions, I was the only one who stayed in touch. And from that moment on, when Michael said, do you want to try X? I'd just say yes. And when my brain was saying, tell him what you know about publishing, tell him what you know about writing, the other voice was saying, no.
Yeah.
And instead, I would just try it his way, because what did I have to lose? And,
Exactly.
It's worked out fabulously so far.
And when you say back in the day or whatever, that was just 2016.
That was, yes. That was the beginning of 2017. The very beginning of 2017, I think.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah. Because I think he started writing in November of 2016, right?
15.
Oh, it was 2016.
Yeah.
You're right.
I only know that because he and I went to the Smart Artist Summit together in 2000, and Sara in 2016. So that's
right.
That's all. That's the only reason I know that.
That's
and he had been publishing for 3 or 4 months.
Oh, then you're right. Or Saren was born in 2017. You're right. And I took Craig Martell. I took him out to dinner at that first Smarter Artist. We went and got Mexican food. The grown man ordered his own food and ate it. And then I see a post later on Facebook that says Martha Carr tried to kill me. And I found out that he went back and laid down after eating the whole combo
enchilada
platter. Enchilada platter. And had acid reflux, stood up really fast, and he's told everybody he has asthma. There's Lois. He stopped breathing and hit the floor and woke up later with his face in the carpet.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
And his response was to post on Facebook, Martha Carr tried to kill me.
Yes. And then now the rest is history.
Yeah.
So no one feed
all work
Craig
together
Martell.
and it's all great.
Well, yes, but no one should feed Craig Martell.
That's right. He's on his own.
He's on his own. And don't eat the whole platter, dude.
That is so
and then
funny.
lie down.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
that is so funny. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. You've given us
Absolutely.
so much good information.
Yeah.
So
It was really good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
lots to
also
think
too,
about.
if you're an older writer, I mean, if financial is part of it, I was 58 when it started to come my way, and so imagine if I'd given up at 57. If you love writing, then find a way to keep doing it.
Yeah.
And just try and enjoy where you are instead of looking at where you want to be.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's
All
exactly
excellent
right.
advice.
Yeah. All great advice. Yeah.
So where can people find out more about you?
So all the books are on Amazon.com and in Kindle Unlimited. And you can find out more than you wanted to know at marthacarr.com, CARR. And the 2 universes are Saren and Terra Novis. And I answer everyone. If you write to me, I actually do write you back. So, and you can find Terra Novis and Saren and I also all have Facebook groups where you can go chat away, and we do giveaways. All sorts
That's
of things.
great.
Yeah.
How awesome. That's great. Well, thank you for being here. We really appreciate it. Yeah. We really appreciate it. Yeah.
So everyone can find show notes and links at wishidknownforwriters.com. And
one thing about the website address, I'd doesn't have an apostrophe. You can't use the apostrophe. So it's wishid known then. Yeah.
There we go.
And I will post links as well to the
Great.
show. So yeah, make sure
Perfect.
everybody can find it. Yeah.
That's
All right,
awesome.
Sounds great.
Great.
Thank you. Thanks for
Thank
joining us.
you.
Bye, yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Wish I'd Known Then podcast. We hope this episode inspired you, empowered you, and made you laugh a little bit too. If you loved it, tell your friends about it. And if you feel so inclined, leave us a review. We look forward to being with you again next week.